makes people feel comfortable. I didn't drink my lunch.
I know.
Uh-oh. So we will have to take a break.
Sure, okay.
I just don't want to get in trouble today.
I know you do not need to be passing out all the work you've been doing, girl.
Well, man, listen. And so we'll open with introductions, however long or short you want to share.
Okay. Sounds good.
In elementary school.
I think, did it start?
Yep, we're ready to go. Hello there, everyone out there in Dazzle's ballroom. Is this a ballroom? It's not a ballroom. But
It can be. It can be.
here at Dazzle Denver and at dazzledenver.com/live. Shameless plug for you to share with your friends. I am JoFoKe, and I'm here with a few of my friends, a few of my musical colleagues here in Denver, Colorado, and we are here to speak about race and more specifically, talk about race relations in the music scene. There are a lot of things that have gone unchecked that I think will be news to a lot of folks about how we operate in the music scene here in Denver, really in Colorado. We are still, unfortunately, very segregated, and there are still lots of opportunities that don't go to Black and brown people. Mm-hmm. And so we want to talk about some of our experiences, and hopefully this isn't just a vent session. We want to talk about it and pull no punches, talk about it so that it can spark change, it can inspire change. And when Donald Rosa, one of the owners of Dazzle, reached out to me about doing this, I told him, no, I really don't want to talk. I don't want to be here. I don't want to have these conversations because it is heavy lifting. It's not comfortable. And when he asked, especially last week when he asked, I didn't have the emotional capacity, I thought, to do this, as I'm sure a lot of my colleagues and Black counterparts feel or felt. However, I think it is important to say that Black lives matter not just after someone is unjustly killed. Black lives matter in our workplaces, and the music industry is our workplace. And so maybe we can make a change here, make, these small changes, spark a small change with this conversation today. Cool? It's okay if you talk back. It's okay, so without any further ado, I want to introduce these wonderful, beautiful people who agreed to join me today. To my immediate left, this is a woman that I met when we were girls. We were but girls. We met in Colorado All-State Choir about years ago. And the way we met, one of our friends, one of our white friends, hates this story because it stings, but it is what it is. We met and saw each other across the room because we were the only non-white, not just black students, we were the only non-white students in the room. And so I saw this other girl with a similar complexion, and it was like, ah! There's my friend, and we've been friends ever since, and grown to work together. So this is Mrs. Kimberly Dawson.
Hello, hello.
So Kim, go ahead and tell the people a little bit about yourself, and then I'll move down the line.
Okay, yeah. So I am not originally from Colorado, but I've been here for 20-something years, most of my life. I'm the daughter of a pastor and music minister. My parents are both singers. I've been in the music world since I was in the womb, and then went on to study music in college, graduated from University of Northern Colorado in Greeley, majored in classical voice, actually, so I was an opera singer for a while, although always sang jazz, sang gospel, all of that stuff that we do, and now have toured the world with lots of different bands. You can find my name on lots of different things in Spotify, but finally I'm starting to launch my own thing. Again, just released my first single under my own name in March, Try, if you want to check it out.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug, and have much more coming out even at the end of this week. So, yeah, and then, yeah, happy to still be able to work with people that I met over half my life ago. I'll just say that. We're not going to say the years. But yeah, I've been in the Colorado scene in jazz, in the jam world. So it's been interesting to see it from kind of different facets for me. And yeah, happy to talk about that later.
All right, Kim Dawson. And next to Kim, this is one of my newer sisters. We met, 3 or 4 years ago when she moved here to Denver. And she had already had an amazing career and has done some great things. I'm sure she'll share about that. But she moved here from New York, and just a beautiful spirit. This is Rajdulari.
Hello, everyone. It's so awesome to meet you and so awesome to be here. I am not from Denver, but I moved here in 2016, and when I tell you I have such a heart for this place and our beautiful community, I can't tell you how amazing it has been to be welcomed by the musicians in this community. And even though the challenges, which we'll speak of in a little bit, even though the challenges are real, the connection between especially musicians of color and other allied musicians here, the community is super strong, and I'm so excited about that. And a little bit about me, I've been a performer since I was 16. I do have my own band, the Rajdulari Project. I've performed in a lot of different wedding bands and projects around the U.S., and I have 2 albums out. The first one is Honey Wine. The second one is Journey of a Woman. And we are currently working on project number 3. Hiatus, more of an emotional hiatus, really, with this coronavirus madness going on. But we are just getting back started with recording and stuff like that. So I'm so excited to be here. And I'm excited to see what our world will become once we move through this next series of challenges. So thank you so much for inviting me to be here, and I'm so happy to see my friends and see everybody.
Yay, Rajdulari! And shout out to her dude, that's what she calls him, the dude, her husband, an amazing photographer, Ryan Landale, out there. And last but certainly not least, I'm sure that majority of you all are familiar with this man's work and his just kind, genuine spirit. I have always looked up to Ron Miles. He graduated from the greatest high school this side of heaven, Denver East High School. We breed champions. No. Okay, but that's neither here nor there. But I've always known who Ron was because my father made certain that we knew who the good up and comers were, you know, and he is still a young man, but he was a much younger man when I was a child, and I got a chance to pay attention and focus and listen to Ron Miles and Bradley Lee and Javon Jackson and those likes. So without any further ado, I'll let him talk about himself. I know, and Ron really likes to talk about himself. He's not humble at all. Give it up for Ron Miles.
Thank you, Jocelyn, and thank you for coming out and listening to us talk and having a conversation, and thank you for getting us all together. I'm not a young man. I'm very old. But,
You're not.
But I certainly am inspired by the music that you all are creating, and I follow you all and try and keep track of what you're doing. It keeps us knowing that the future is in very good hands. So I'm honored to be here and to take part in the conversation. So thank you.
Thank you. Ron Miles, everyone. So we had a little talk before this began, and we were sharing some of our experiences. I can start with one, and I want to go down the line, and if you have questions, let's make this a true dialogue. Let's make this a real conversation. So sadly, I have several examples of racism, encountering racism as a musician, even starting at 11 years old. I was a music major, or a vocal music major, at Denver School of the Arts. Back when it was at Cole Middle School, I was in the guinea pig group, and I had a teacher that assumed that I couldn't read music and thought that I was cheating, and even called my parents in. Big mistake. This dude had no idea that both of my parents were musicians and that my dad had started teaching me ledger lines and grand staffs as soon as I learned the alphabet, because that's what you need, the alphabet, and really to be able to count to 10. I didn't realize what that was. I was the only student at that time that went into DSA in my class reading music, but it had a sting. And then, of course, as you age, as you mature, those kinds of things, in hindsight, it's like, what? How can you, what? And in that same year, we had a makeup class, stage makeup class, and we were taught how to do blackface. They called it browning. This is how you do browning. And I hope that since then DSA has departed from that kind of practice. I hope that now the educators are more aware or will ask more questions rather than assume and put somebody in a place of punitiveness, because I actually was in trouble. They called my parents about my cheating. Yeah. So I'm going to pass it on to Kimberly to share some type of experience that she has had.
That's a harsh one. Yeah, so I went to high school in a southern suburb that shall remain nameless right now. But I was one of very few brown dots in the entire high school, not just my class. And while I did make a name for the school in some ways, I was the first student at my high school to go to all-state choir. I was the only person my first year. But it was, I was very fortunate to have supportive music teachers in general, and some of the others. But there was always kind of like, well, of course she's good at this thing because she's Black, but like, it's not hard for her, or whatever. Even though I worked my behind off my entire life to be good at this thing, but but since then it's been interesting being a Black woman in a music industry. I mostly sing a lot of soul and funk music, but surrounded by white musicians, and there are lots of instances where I get lumped in with just the other Black women that sing in the like I am often mistaken, even if I'm standing next to the person they're confusing me with. I'm often mistaken for just whatever other Black singer there is, that they know. It happens like all the time, and you kind of get reduced to just this image, and also overlooked for certain opportunities, because I think people are more impressed by, you know what, I'm gonna just say it. People can be more impressed by like white people that they think sound Black than the Black people doing the thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying there aren't very talented. I've worked with amazingly talented people my whole life, but yeah, you get overlooked because it's cooler to be
Exotic.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm up against that like all the time. And again, not to say it doesn't push me to just be better and better and better, but it is different, the standard, and people don't have to be as good. I can name like 5 Black singers that could sing rings around somebody that is doing it okay.
Right.
And so it's just interesting that in this industry that I'm in, where like it was created by Black musicians,
right?
That we're still kind of like sitting on the sidelines, like, hey,
I'm here.
I do this. Like we're still doing this yet, and yet they will use our image to validate the funkiness or the coolness of whatever festival or whatever event they're putting on. Like, look at how many like Black women silhouettes you see on a poster for something, or on some sort of invitation or advertisement for something, and it's like, but yet you'll look at the roster and there's not a single person of color in the band involved. Or not a Black woman. It's like, so you want to use me but not use me? So that's kind of where I've been sitting the last few years, and it's hard to reconcile, because I still love what I do, and I love a lot of the people I work with, but it would be nice if there was also the culture of reverence from where the music came from, reverence for where the music came from, in the same way that, and the people that are still making that music also.
Right.
Otherwise, it just comes off as like sad appropriation, I guess is the best way to put it. I've been wrestling with that a lot, and how to make it better. And it just comes from people educating themselves, and also paying homage where it's due, when it's due.
Right. Right. To kind of piggyback on what Kim said, I was listening to a Black voice here in Denver. She is amazing. She's the owner of the Black Business Initiative. Her name is Jice Johnson. And the other day she was talking about how Bank of America has vowed to give $1 billion to the Black community, non-specific. And $1 billion out of their several trillion dollars, she equated it to pocket change. And you know how you might be walking along and you hear something jingle and you feel something fall out of your pocket, but you're like, it's fine. Really, like having a $100 bill and you passing someone on the street and giving them 50 cents of that, saying, well, I helped. The reason I'm bringing up what Jay said is that she said we've got to stop just applauding oh, that's okay, and it really, to me, goes hand in hand with what Kim was saying about the standard being lower when it comes to our white counterparts doing traditionally Black music. Oftentimes we're like, yay, this is wonderful, good job, and it's really not, and it's really, it's in the spirit of being diplomatic and being supportive. However, we know that it's also going to be a snub to one of my sisters, one of my brothers, who are actually doing the dang thing, but just don't have necessarily a machine or that money or investors, sponsors, so on and so forth behind them.
The support behind them.
Yeah. And that's a whole other thing we can talk about, because the financial side of things is also skewed. So, Raj.
Yes.
You, sister, share with us.
The funny thing about being Black and a musician in America is that you don't really have any shortage of stories that you can pull from of negative experiences that you've had, whether it's when you're in grade school or, I remember being in theater in high school and being typecasted all the time. I was the lounge singer in Grease instead of the main, and I think I was one of the only ones in the cast who could sing at the time.
Wow.
There's been so many examples of that. There's a theater that I've worked with here, and I actually had, I'm an actress as well as a musician, and I had a white actor basically sexually assault me during a show. And I remember bringing it up to the cast, bringing it up to the stage managers, and no one did anything about it. And it was one of my first theater shows here. Well, not my first, but it was one of my first multiracial, larger cast theater shows here in Denver at the time. And I wasn't sure how to approach it, because not only am I new in the theater scene, I'm new in Denver. My music is already, if you listen to any of my music, it's already Black and political. So how much do I raise my issue? And I was really, really disappointed at the end of it when the director and I didn't end up having a conversation after this. I spoke with other folks on the staff, but not with the person who originally cast me. And I mean, that's one example of many of experiences that we as Black musicians have to walk through. Black musicians, Black female musicians, we have a lot that we have to do to keep ourselves safe and to keep ourselves balanced and sane in this community. But I think the thing that is most important for me is when I first moved here, for instance, and we were as a musician, I had been in New York, I had performed for a certain amount of time, but I was still new. Any market that you go into, you have to learn and grow and do all of those things. I would pull out the newspaper just on a general weekday and say, okay, what performers are performing Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday? What jazz or what soul events can I go to? If you look in your newspaper, how many of those bands have no persons of color in them, but they're playing all soul music, a jazz review, this kind of cover, that? Or how many bands have maybe one person of color in it, but you play all Black music and you don't really, and your audience is mostly white and you don't really speak about things that are important to the community. You just regurgitate the same soulful Black music that you've listened to for so many years. those of us in the wedding band industry, you know what I'm talking about.
Yikes.
You know, if I sing, you know, Domino or I Feel Good or any, you know, September one more time in my life, and all of that is fine. I mean, obviously we love our ancestors and we love the music that was created before. But I really think that all of us, audiences everywhere, need to challenge yourself to listen to different things. Challenge your artists in your community to have more representation, and more importantly, challenge your venues to have better representation. Because I think if I'm telling you of a story that I've had as a Black cast member or a Black musician inside of one singular event, you come to that event, you may not know that story, but you could challenge your friends to support people of color events. You can challenge your friends to buy tickets. You can challenge your musician friends who sing a lot of Black music to actually have Black people in their projects, and
Right.
you know, and
Right.
actually, and there are some awesome musicians who do make platforms for people of color. So please understand, I'm saying this specifically to people who don't. But it's real, and there's so many ways that we walk with this struggle, and I think especially for those of us who are musicians, at the end of the day, we are entertainers, so we are supposed to make your lives better, right? When we get on stage, at least our hope is, even as we're educating you, even as we're challenging you, even as we're giving you music that might be hard for you to hear, it's our goal to give you truth that soothes you, makes you feel better, all of that. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, to really understand what musicians walk with is to challenge your own perceptions and your own thinking. What do you listen to? What have you supported? And how do you support the musicians in your local community? All right, I'm going to shut up. So.
No, but that is legit.
Yeah.
That is legit. I've had a conversation this week about that, how in Denver, the venues that actually book local artists, that's a whole other thing.
Right.
But the venues that actually book local artists their booking agents are white men across the board. Now that we've lost Live at Jack's, I almost said Jazz at Jack's, same thing. Right. Live at Jack's with Sandra Watts, that was a white woman. And it's okay. I'm sure you're saying to yourselves, or some of you might be saying to yourselves, well, I mean, if the people keep themselves aware of what's out there, not so much. Because remember at the beginning of this conversation, I talked about how segregated the music scene is. It really, really is. Kimberly and I did Kim and I did an Aretha Franklin tribute together at the top of, was that last year?
Yeah, January of last
Yeah.
year.
I mean, it feels like several years we've been in quarantine. So at the top of last year, we did an Aretha Franklin tribute. And after we did, it was a short series, 2 nights, different places. Someone said to me, where have you been? Did you just come here? Like, you really need to get out there. Like, I've never heard of you in my life. And I'm thinking, well, like, I'm out. Like, I want to say, where have you been? Because I'm out here.
Right.
I thought we were out here kind of killing it. We're making progress. We played City Park Jazz. That was kind of a big deal. But again, we're very, very segregated. Yes, sir.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and I'm getting back to your comment on booking managers.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times in St. Louis, I'll see where there's an event where they bring in multiple bands for different nights, and sometimes you never see African American bands.
Mm-hmm.
I sometimes feel the venue is concerned that you have to bring in an African American band. We're going to bring in all these African American people and use the stereotype of the rowdiness and ruckus and all that. So they're scared to bring in the African American band because they're scared of all the African American coming. Do you guys see that here or?
I do think that happens, but generally it is something that is produced by a Black artist, not even a promoter or even involving the venue. And so I'll give you an example. Last summer, one of my supporting vocalists competed on BET's Next Big Thing. And we have known that she's awesome. We've known. But she did very well on this show. Go back and watch Brianne Anye. She's from Denver. And yeah, yay! And I was thinking, okay, yeah, now she's been on TV. This is about to take off for Brie. So our group of friends, my band is kind of like a conglomerate. We will shift to support the other artists in the band. Danae Simone, another local artist worth checking out, she has a series of concerts called Woman Crush Wednesday, where she highlights Black women. She hosts it at venues that are like the Ogden or Bluebird, and she'll invite anybody of any genre just so we have a chance, so we have a voice. So last year we went to support Brianne on an event, and when I tell you it was Black DJ, Black rap artist, Black, yeah. So we don't even have venues saying, hey, let's do a Black night. I mean, that still would be kind of problematic, but we don't even have that happening. Right. And of course, you all know I love Dazzle, and Dazzle reaches out to me often, but I've even had knockdown dragouts with former booking managers or music directors here at Dazzle. Just, yeah. Good question. Yes, ma'am.
For Facebook watchers, can you repeat the question he asked so they can hear you live?
Okay. All right. I don't remember what I had for breakfast, but
Yeah. Say it and then we'll say it.
You want me to?
is there?
We know
You
what
can,
he said.
you can say it again and then we'll repeat you. How about that?
Yeah.
However, this handout was from St. Louis, and a lot of times I'll see venues have different nights where they'll have different artists, but then there won't be any Black artists. And a lot of times my friends and I will assume they don't want the rowdiness or the stereotypes. They have a whole bunch of Black people come to kind of stir up what might happen if they rowdy crime, hip hop crowd or this, that, and other. So I think sometimes they're fearful of having a night with African American artists. I was asking, do you guys see that or think that happens?
Okay, so he's saying that he's from St. Louis and had experienced, having clubs having different nights where they have different bands, but thinking that the venue owners or whoever's promoting the music might be steering away from Black bands because they are afraid of the Black audience and what might possibly negatively come with having a full Black audience. Yeah.
Speaking to that weaponized skin. So I misheard you the first time. I didn't even address your question. So it's good that you asked that again. Yeah, that's heavy.
Well,
I think that is.
I was going to say, I think, speaking back to us talking about how segregated the music community is here, I think, at least I can't speak for any promoters or venue managers or owners or anything. I haven't seen that myself, just because I think it's just like, people that go see R&B or hip hop or whatever go to a certain venue to do that. And I think that our venues are pretty separate as far as that's concerned, except for a couple where there's some crossover. But I think that the audiences are already pretty separate because certain venues only provide an outlet for certain kinds of music. I shouldn't say only, because for example, Dazzle's a jazz club, so they have jazz. There are certain places that's what they do, and that's good because I mean, especially for jazz, we need those venues because there's not that many of them. So I'm
Right,
so
right.
thankful for it. But yeah, I think already there's such a separation of the crowds and those venues that I don't know that it's as much of an issue. But
And then when there are hip hop artists that show up at like a jam bandy spot, it's generally going to be someone that they're paying big bucks for. So Common was here not long ago at a venue, and I don't know that anybody who plays music in that that vein was even asked to open for him, or anybody of. I hate saying people of color because people of color and black are not interchangeable.
Right.
So not black artists. Shaka Khan was here a few years ago, and she made it clear, I need a black woman to open for me. And of course, those who brought her acquiesced. Of course, we're going to, whatever you need, Mrs. Khan. And of course, we do need more of that. But yeah, yikes. Go ahead.
But to answer that question is to assume that audiences that come to black spaces will be rowdy,
Right.
and will be out of control. And it's to assume that multicultural audiences don't attend black shows.
Right.
So I feel like there's so much more that
To unpack.
would you need to unpack in that conversation. And also I feel like there's the stereotypical assumption of a large group of black folks being rowdy. Hello, even in the protests now,
Right.
it's this assumption that if there's a large group of black folk, they're being rowdy, versus if there's a large group of people of color, black folk, whatever, that they're not. And I think if venues are having that question, then they need to challenge their own assumptions, and they need to challenge their mindset. And if you're a venue that makes money off of black music, whether it's a whole bunch of white bands or not, then you really need to be challenged by how you think, how you move, and where you spend your money,
Right.
and how you support those artists and audiences. But I think, overall, if we're, in terms of this, I do think that Denver is segregated. I think that there are some amazing organizations that do awesome things in smaller spaces, but the larger venues that could have the opportunity to bring more visibility to black voices don't always do
Right.
that.
Right.
So, yes, and,
Yeah. And then oftentimes they want to hear your voice, but they don't want to pay for it.
Right.
And they
that
feel
part.
like, oh, the joy of
Right.
music. Hey, the joy of music is not paying for my
Right.
music degree that I'm still paying for. Again, a different conversation. Finally.
Well, I'll actually, I'd like to speak to your question too a little bit. St. Louis, my mom's from Centralia, Illinois, so real close to St. Louis, and I played there not that long ago with Marcus Strickland and Matt Wilson. And the dynamics of St. Louis are quite a bit different, I think, than Denver to a large degree. For one, I think that there is a larger African-American population there than here. And so I think that that the people, and I think this was addressed earlier too, the people who are into jazz music, there's not that many people in general.
Right.
And so if you're presenting creative jazz music, then you're probably going to get a pretty diverse group of people coming to check it out. And there can be elements. I mean, like for example, if Robert Glasper played here, then maybe there would be a larger black contingent than another creative black artist. But I don't. I think that just the dynamics of those two places are quite a bit different. And so I think that club owners here, I hate to speak for them, but they would love to have a full house. However we get a full house,
Right.
and that would be a beautiful thing to support the
That
music.
too,
And
yep.
so I just wanted to address that just from being from around there, and just talked to my aunties this morning actually from Centralia actually. And So God bless you. Thanks for asking the question, brother. Appreciate it.
Yes.
And we did have, now they aren't a live music venue, but there was a bar called Cold Crush a few years ago, and it was a huge thing in a neighborhood that we know as the Five Points neighborhood. Now has been dubbed, that area a little further down has been dubbed Rhino. Locals don't, or natives do not call it Rhino. That's still the Points. It's still the east side. Anyhow, there were new neighbors coming in saying that they were too rowdy. It was too loud. They played predominantly hip hop. It was a hip hop bar, and that was kind of that was the draw. You know, it was for hip hop lovers, like true hip hop lovers. And I frequented that spot several times. I even had my parents down there with me for my birthday. We were eating tacos and what have you, and it was a good thing. And then there was one night when some stuff went down. Someone actually got shot on the block. And bless his heart, he died. He was a local rapper. And then there was this big campaign like, see, this is what they're doing. And they, by saying they were the blacks. And they're too rowdy for this neighborhood, and they're this, that, and we've been doing this.
Right,
We've
right.
been there's a line in What's Going On where Marvin Gaye says, we've been wearing our hair, we've been doing this for all along. Anyway, when I sing it, I've had to start adding things. We've been blasting our music, wearing hoodies, walking down the middle of the street all day long. Because, like, when is us just doing what we do and celebrating our past, our storied past, in our way, you know, artistically? When does it not have to just be a nuisance?
Right.
Yeah. So I hear what you're saying. I wish I could address your. Cool. Yeah, Ron got it. He was like, eh.
I just wanted to ask what music venues do you guys suggest that support Black artists?
She asked, what music venues do we suggest that support Black artists?
So we should call names. I guess that's what it is.
I'm gonna leave that to you, Jay. No.
You're gonna leave it to me. You're gonna leave me alone out here. Out here in the cold.
No, Dazzle. I mean, you know that.
Well, no, now I have to say this about Dazzle. Dazzle is not just jazz anymore, but they are still, of course, the biggest cheerleaders for local jazz artists. Dazzle has brought in this last year, I've been here to support musical heroes. They brought in Bilal, they brought in Avery Sunshine. Help me. Who else has been here?
Gosh, many, yeah.
The Baylor Project.
Baylor
Yes!
Project, there you go,
Understand.
yes.
And I don't know how I forgot the Baylor Project, because in that I earned a mentor in Jean. Like she gave me her number and everything and sat and talked to me. I was exhausted the next morning, but she like really poured into me. The Baylor Project. Yes, sir. Hi, Don.
Hi. So, if I misspeak, you may slap me down. But why doesn't when we present the Black music, why doesn't the Black people come?
Ooh.
Is that a
That's
fair
a-
question?
No, it's absolutely a fair question. He asked, when we present the Black music, why don't the Black people come?
Yeah, why don't the...
Baylor Project or whether it been yes, and we purposely go out and get it purposely promote it, why is it?
So okay, and Don said, why don't Black audiences come when they purposefully promote these artists that they are intentionally going out to bring in? And I hear that you are being intentional, but as far as your promotions, you say you're going out, you're intentionally promoting. How? Who is helping you promote? Is it the same person that is promoting? Who is in the boardroom?
Black promoters.
Black promoters.
The drop, everyone associated with the drop, urban spectrum. We push, it's something that I've been working on, pretty much my whole career, and you have all given me feedback in the past and that sort of thing. Rob's been a big help with that. But still, when we put it out there, there are certain, and Purnell would be one person.
Mm-hmm.
You put Purnell on stage, Black people come. But if I put
Harriet Tubman.
no one came.
Yeah.
And it kind of breaks your heart a little bit because, but the people that did came got a great experience. And I will say, non-Black people got an education, which I was thankful for. But I wanted to know, where were my Black friends?
Right. I hear you. Sometimes I wonder that. Where are my friends? I often, even with the shows that I sell out, a lot of the time those are strangers, and a lot of the time it's totally.
Predominantly white.
It is. It is. Now I'm grateful that I've gotten new supporters in that way, but. Yeah, I hear you. I'm not sure how effective just the drop and urban spectrum are, because at this generation isn't necessarily picking up the paper to read and see, hey, what's going on, yeah, it wouldn't really be effective in Westward either, because Westward largely overlooks us. And if we're nominated for anything Westward, it's always going to be the soul category. Kayla Marquis is not soul. She has said time and time again, I am alternative. However, she's still going to be nominated as soul. And then there's not regularly going to be any kind of jazz artist nominated either. Right. So, on the other, getting back to how we can better promote, being in the know a little bit more, because yes, the drop and urban spectrum are Black-led entities. However, they are more my parents' generation, and my parents are very young at heart, but not in body. So that's just to give you the idea. Those aren't necessarily the people who are going to be out here. My parents come to every show. You guys know that. My parents are at everything, but like their friends are like, oh, 7 o'clock, that's right before bedtime. And I'm thinking that's an early show. It's early. Yeah, so I would admonish you to reach out to the people like Rue Johnson or those younger promoters, younger publications.
But I think it's not just about what happens when you get a national artist in here and why the audiences aren't coming. I think there needs to be a build in the community between local artists and venues, because
Yeah.
I think if you have local artists, like I know sometimes you guys have local artists that open for folks and stuff, and I think that might be helpful to bring in more of the local people, because I don't think we can necessarily explain to you why people don't come out for national artists. And for local artists, I gotta say, you have to consider that Black artists in particular, and yes, artists of color in general, but a lot of us, we pay for our own marketing. We pay for all of our own publicists, our postcards. I can't tell you how much money I've spent just on postcards. Yeah. And I can't tell you how many venues that I've reached out to where they'll give me a night, but they won't do any promotion for me. I have to do everything. And I think a lot of venues, 9 times out of 10, need to at least help artists do the promotion. And I know that, yes, there are artists who have big audiences, but there are also a lot of young artists out there doing amazing things that just need platforms.
Right.
And so I think that if there's a way to marry more of, maybe having programs a couple times a week where you do showcase local artists and you showcase younger artists and you build an audience that way, or at least give them a place to go. I know that everybody needs to pay the bills. I know that, venues need to keep the lights on. But if we don't develop like a true community, if there's a venue that says, like even now today, because of your relationship with local musicians and artists, everybody, you ask us to come and have a social justice conversation, we will, because of the relationship that you've built. And I think that's awesome. But I think a lot of other venues need to do that. You can't say, okay, I'm going to give you a night. You show up with all your people. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not, I can put postcards out, but you won't even put them on your tables, things like that. It's like, help us help you, and also help us grow. All these venues, you want our music. You need our entertainment. You need our faces. But then you don't want to do some of the things that will help us grow as a community, as an artist in general. So I think that's kind of the answer, but it's hard when it's a national act versus a local act too, and why people come out or don't,
We, just last year, and I saw your hands, just last year, the Soil Dove called me, it was about this time, where Louis York, I don't know if you all know who Louis York is, they are amazing artists. They've written for everybody from Madonna to Lady Gaga to Whitney Houston. Like, their catalog as writers is bananas. And now they have launched out as artists. Louis York, they were coming to town, and they had sold 4 tickets.
Wow,
9 days out. And so Retley, the booking manager over at Soil Dove, called me, said, hey, do you think you and JoFoKe and them, that's my band, JoFoKe and them can come and open? Would you mind? And, of course, we discussed the numbers and what have you, because we weren't coming to do that for free.
Come on.
And they added my name to the promotions and everything. And, I mean, when we arrived, it was a sold-out show. And so, of course, it made me think, like, wait.
Right, that part.
Wait a minute. I have to call you to book. I have to, like, granted, that is kind of how booking works. You call to book. But, like, I'm here in your city, and I was asked to be an opener in a pinch. Why not reach out to local artists when you're not in a pinch? Like Raj is saying, building those relationships. Building those relationships, that's valuable. And they can't tell me that they don't see our worth. There's no way now. Right. Not then either. But there's no way. If we helped you sell this thing out, you had 4 tickets sold. Okay, Ryan, you had a question. Were we called back? I was called back after I called, that is one of the venues that I love the staff. I love to play there. I love the sound and what have you. But they are dead set on bringing people in and not necessarily stirring up the community that they have here. And it's really unfortunate.
Yeah.
It really is. It's unfortunate, to say the very least. Ryan, what were you saying?
Two things. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Take this off just a little bit so you can hear me. 'Cause I'm not a singer.
Right. We have that forward placement. Yeah.
Two things. There's a common thread that I'm hearing, and the common thread is that Black people don't own their music. They don't own their culture.
Right.
They don't own the spaces. They don't own the way that they're presented. They don't even. We create the music. We create the culture, but we don't have any ownership over it. It's similar to the resources in the continent. We have the continent, but we don't own what's underneath the land. You know what I mean? And it seems like the culture is simply just being mined for what it can produce, but it's not being invested in, which is the second part. As a music lover and as someone that wants to hear good music, I don't feel like there's a lot of places in being married to a musician where musicians are encouraged to play their own music.
Ooh.
Denver doesn't have a sound
Right.
because their musicians aren't allowed to create their own sound. They're not encouraged to create their own sound. Who are you covering? But there's no, why am I going to go hear a song I've heard 50 million times?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm not hearing anything new.
Right.
I'm not hearing, yeah, Robert Glasper's dope, but who else you going to bring in that's going to bring something different, that's going to make people want to come in and hear something they haven't heard 55 million times
Right.
already? And now, just like you're saying, there's not an opportunity, they want to bring in these national acts that have done the work and blown up, but how are you going to blow up Denver artists
Right.
so that they can say, hey, so-and-so played at Dazzle before they won a Grammy?
Right.
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 Or so-and-so played here before they did this, that, and the third. I don't feel like the local Black artists, especially jazz musicians, hip-hop, yeah, but jazz, soul, R&B, it's like, well, you got to play something 50 years old to get a gig.
Absolutely. That's true.
Let's leave that.
He was speaking to the cover culture here in Colorado. It is huge. And Raj and I were just talking about that.
Yep.
That's another thing we end up encountering. There's a venue here.
Come on.
When I tell you, several people have referred me. They know my name. They emailed me like, hey, well, I've heard from such and such, and we want to get you in here. So what days are good for you? Well, actually, we're not going to do a door split with you because we're not sure if you can draw.
There we go.
And then, so what music will you be playing? And to me, I'm like, that's my business. Why are you in my set list?
Right.
That has nothing to do with you.
Right.
Well, yeah, we prefer if you do like, I don't know, like an Aretha Franklin tribute. No, but I'm coming in with original music. I don't know. I don't know if you'll draw. Yeah. So like how much, I don't know. And then had somebody ghost me.
Wow.
He ghosted me. And when I brought it up to, I'm sure they're watching, my Gumbo LaFunk friends. Anybody know Gumbo LaFunk? Andrea and Jason Justice out there always fighting for what's right. Andrea got on the phone and called this individual, and he called me back, and then pandemic happened. But like it's always that is just one instance. When Raj got here, I invited Raj to share on the stage with me because people were being foul to her and saying, well, what's the theme gonna be?
Yeah.
Rajdulari.
Right. Right.
I am the theme. And we have a very, very heavy tribute and cover culture here in Denver. Yeah. And I'm just tired of folks wanting me to be an iPod.
Right. Right.
That's why I don't come out.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Real talk. And then even when I have done tributes and I'm doing my own arrangements, I catch flack.
Right.
Well, I'm a creative. I create. I don't just recreate. But that's, yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's so much of our culture, though. It's like, this idea that musicians need to be jukeboxes, and this idea that audiences don't want to hear something different. I can't tell you, and I will say that's been I was so grateful for Dazzle for giving me a gig when I first got here, so let me say that first of all. But I was so disappointed to move here from New York to be an artist of color and to call, I can't tell you, at least 6 or 7 different venues. And the first thing that they asked me was, what cover tribute can you do? And I've released 2 albums. I've toured internationally. I went to Berkeley. Like, music for me, even if I don't have the audience because I'm a new person here, my music for me is still high quality, high level. We put a lot of work into it. I don't necessarily need to copy somebody else's creation. I have my own.
Right.
And it's really unfortunate to me that there's a lot of venues out there that you have to show your audience something new. It's not just about, you're taking a risk. And in a way you might be, as financially I understand for venues. But if your audience is going to come and hear the same cookie cutter thing, then yes, you will lose your audience because they'll get bored.
Right.
So why wouldn't you have bands in that do different things, that provide different levels of music? Why wouldn't you challenge your audience to think differently? Why aren't we challenging our people to think differently? Why do we want to continue to perpetuate stuff 50, 60 years ago? And if you're asking me to put a playlist together from 50, 60 years ago, I'm assuming that you still live 50, 60 years ago and that we're not going to be making progress in our community. So, I'm half kidding and half not. It's that real.
Yeah, that's huge.
Did you have that question from?
Yes, that's.
Thank you, Kim. Keep us on track. Girl.
I mean, come on, Sergeant of Arms. I actually wanted to share this at the end, but this question said, "Can you please list the projects we are working on and local programs so this question asker, this supporter can support and follow and circulate?" And thank you very much for that, whomever you are. Allison, God bless you, Allison. All of us are on, okay, we won't say all of us. Some of us are on social media. No, all of us have Facebook artist page, Jizz. I know that sounding out JoFoKe sometimes can be tricky, JoFoKe. Kim Dawson. Is it Kim Dawson Music?
Yeah. Well, I mean, my Facebook page is just Kim Dawson.
Okay, Kim Dawson, KIMDAWSON. And here we go. Come on, I'm a spelling bee champion.
Hold on, I'm going to wait. Let me see now.
This is Rajdulari.
Yes.
And now Raj is multifaceted because you'll find Rajdulari style, Rajdulari fitness, Rajdulari brown girl in Colorado. But Rajdulari music is what I tagged today on Facebook, and that is Rajdulari. Rajdulari. Yes!
I love you.
You know how many times people mess up my name? My government and my stage name.
Yes.
Butchered daily. So, yes, I understand.
Identity is important, thank you.
It is. It matters. Yeah. It matters. And down there at the end, he is on Facebook as Ron Miles. That's Ron Miles Music, sorry. RONMILES Music. Traditional spelling. Because I know musicians do all that. All that other stuff. And I believe we'll have that. Can we add that to the comments or that information?
Or no?
Or not. And we have, before we finish, go ahead and give us your websites. Mm-hmm. But I have several projects out there. I have my band, JoFoKe and them. I am JoFoKe, the solo artist. I'm in a band called Sojourn with Solomon Chapman. Any Solomon Chapman fans? Yay! We're in like 17 bands together, real talk. And then his project, that is soon to debut, but we are called The Outliers.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
And what are your projects?
Well, Kim Dawson is my main project right now. it's a fledgling project of sorts. Just finally got back to doing my music. So, but I have been parts of lots of other bands that you can find my name associated with, primarily in the jam band world, the funk bands in the jam band world, I should say. One of them being my husband's band, JoFoKe, and that's another one that's, oh gosh. Okay, so I'll spell that for you. It is EUFORQUESTRA. EUFORQUESTRA, JoFoKe. But yeah, that's so. Yeah, but just keep looking for, just look for my name because it's. I'm trying now. I'm not the best at social media,
are
but
doing
awesome thing.
You're
but I'm
doing.
I'm on Instagram as K Dawson Music, and on Twitter as K Dawson Music as well. So.
As she said, Rajdulari. I am working on album number 3. I have my own solo project. I'm also embarking on this new venture. I have become extremely passionate about Black girl fitness. I've become extremely passionate about health and wellness, not just for us as Black women, but us as Black female musicians and daughters and. And so I do a lot of work with women, empowering women around their health and wellness, and it's something that has literally just kind of expanded since the coronavirus hit. I lead a group. We do 30-day challenges, and we literally just motivate each other. None of us are fitness experts, but we motivate each other with exercise and health and wellness. And it's been really amazing because we started our last round right before the virus hit. So week 2, we were all in this private kind of mastermind group together, going through being quarantined and finding ways to still be healthy, and finding ways to still work out, and finding ways to eat healthy and find, organic groceries and things like that. And so I think that if we're gonna have any kind of discussion about what happens going forward, the health of our people is paramount to me. So, I'm doing music. I will always do music. I love music. I will be doing some live concerts coming up. I'm also 1/3 of an awesome powerhouse Black female podcast called the SIP Podcast. It's with myself, this incredible classical jazz, amazing creator, Monique Brooks-Roberts, violinist, who's my best friend.
She's amazing.
She's amazing. Girl, you should see people clapping for you. And it was her brainchild, and it's also with my sister-in-law and one of my deepest friends, Carrie Joy, who is amazing. She's a poet and activist and amazing artist. Yes.
And closeted singer.
Right. And she can sing. Right. Don't
Girl can sing.
Exactly.
She's taking lessons with me, so
Oh yeah.
look for her. Yeah, look for her singing later. It's gonna happen.
She's so talented, y'all. I mean, she started out as a spoken word artist. She's a musician. She's an activist. She's just a powerhouse. She's an educator. And so every Friday, even with saying all of that, every Friday we have cocktails and talk shit on on our podcast. So, but it's a great way for us to release, because I think that as we're going through this stressful time, we have to find our positivity. We have to find our connections and our creative juices. So Rajdulari Music, the SIP Podcast, Rajdulari Fitness for sure. I literally just hit 50 pounds down last week. So I'm very excited. Thank you. And I hope that folks really focus on their health going forward too. So that's all I'm saying.
Will Monique be here soon?
I hope so. I think Monique, if you guys don't know who Monique the Brooks Roberts is, she's amazing. She also is new to Denver. She moved here, I think a couple years ago. She's an amazing violinist. I've sang with her project. She just released a new album called Free. She actually released it in, I believe, February, right before the coronavirus hit. We were in the middle of planning her album release party in
it was
March.
like the following week.
It was the following week, and we were talking about that because you were doing some stuff here too, and it was like,
we were trying to make it happen.
Exactly, but so there's so many dope Black artists and folks in Denver to follow as well.
And Monique came to my job, my day job at MSU, Metro State University, back in February. There was a feature, a Derek Hodge feature.
Yes.
And he brought her up honey. Oh, everybody was like, Derek got you? What? Go sit down. No, but really, she is an amazing talent. Please look for Monique Brooks Roberts and her wonderful husband, Aaron Brooks Roberts.
So, sorry, Shane, is tonight?
Oh, yes.
She's streaming tonight
She
on
is.
Dazzle's.
This right here on this channel.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
That's right. I
Good
knew she
call.
was, but I didn't know what day. So, yes, okay.
Shane and Kelly are here. Hey, guys. I go way back with the Insleys. But Shane is way older than me.
Wait, before you answer the question, Ron, do you want to tell people where they can find your stuff? Sorry, I'm trying to.
I mean, I'm not really that active on social media. I hate to say, I'm just super old. So
I was looking for you on this.
no, there's not much there. But I'll get it together one of these times. But yeah, I'll work on that. That's my goal.
But y'all can just Google Ron Miles,
Right,
and you
and
will
be
find
astounded.
so much stuff.
Be
He's been here doing his thing forever and been doing it at a level of excellence that all of us aspire to.
And was nominated for a Grammy last year.
He was nominated for a Grammy last year.
Ron is a big deal, you
Denver
guys.
royalty right there.
Yes.
And as humble as they come.
Yes.
Real talk. And whomever is working your Facebook music page is doing a bang-up job.
Oh, well, that's good.
Really, they're on it.
Well, Arnie Swinson is doing it. I don't know how to get on Facebook, so I appreciate knowing that. So that means a lot. So thank you.
It's all right. It's not a bad thing. I spend too much time on it. One thing I want to say, and this is something that was already happening, but one of the best things to get, the Black community involved is like artists supporting each other. And you've heard us name drop so many other local musicians and musicians that tour nationally and all that. And it can be hard because, this industry is kind of cutthroat, and you kind of have to spend a lot of time thinking about yourself and promoting yourself and doing your thing and making sure everybody knows about your thing. But I think creating the community, especially as Black artists, is very important. And that's why, it's, being part of this panel to me was important. And when I hired the people to sing for the Aretha Franklin tribute that we put together, I made sure to bring people to venues that I go to regularly, that I get hired at regularly, that don't get hired there, because I knew people were going to be like, where'd you come from? And I could be like, these people have been here. Mm-hmm. Y'all need to expand. But that comes from us supporting each other and promoting each other. And it's a very, very important thing.
Right, and that is important. Artists have to do that. I know that these two can testify that anytime somebody sends something to me, for instance, Oprah came earlier this year before the pandemic, on tour, and they reached out wanting local singers. They asked for Black singers to come and open for Oprah. I could have held on to that just for myself. No. I think that's how we should be sparking community and celebrating each other, by passing on that information. So I did. Everybody in my in my Rolodex, my proverbial Rolodex, because I don't have one of those, but I sent it out like, hey, let's make the most of it. And then for the younger ones who didn't understand what it was asking for, what a vocal reel was and what have you, educated them on that, helped them build those kinds of things. And that's the kind of support we do have within our community. We can stand more of it.
Yep.
Yeah. There's never too much of that. Yeah. I have a question up here that I don't understand.
A lot of those are from the very last question this gentleman asked. That's pertaining to
Okay. Saying, as a Black woman, I disagree with your statement. From what perspective are you basing your statement? So that was for
the cover.
But what part of the statement do you disagree with?
Right, because he said a lot.
And as a Black woman, how
Is she talking about being cover, when we were talking about being cover artists?
And maybe, and I don't know if that comes from another performer, but Ryan has a front seat to what we deal with,
Right.
being married to Rajdulari. We are, it is a practice. It is actually routine that they ask, well, who are you going to cover?
Oh, yeah.
Rather than, hey, yeah, come on in here with that good original music. It's not a thing. It's to the point that when I first moved back here I used to live in Nashville, Tennessee. When I moved back in 2012, I had a venue owner tell me, well, yeah, you know, they're not going to really get into whatever you're doing if they don't know it. Oh, they're going to learn today. And I created a segment, you know, just sort of to have a compromise to meet this person where they were. I did do some covers and did them my way. either did my own arrangement or recycled something of my dad's with no shame. And and then I had a segment called Rock It or Drop It, where I would just do all original music. And the Rock It or Drop It became the stuff that people request readily still. And so now, if you don't want me doing my original music, sounds personal. I'm, you know, at this point, nope.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
One more quick thing. To follow up on that, how can artists speak to, like Nina Simone, artists have to speak to what's happening in their time. How can they speak to it if they're not allowed to play their own current music?
Right. The question was, Nina Simone said it is the artist's job to reflect the times in which they're living. And he said, how are you supposed to, as an artist, do that if you're just doing covers? Well, Ryan, duh, we just sing Marvin Gaye and Nina Simone. We just recycle those songs.
Right.
No, you're right. You're right. And there are current artists that are speaking out about that. We can cover that. But, like, I'm a writer. I'm a creator. I'm going to create. So please, just go along with what I'm doing. Yes, sir. I see you. You've been very patient.
You know, I just came, my best friend and I just came from a venue presented by Together Colorado. And I came to Denver about a year and a half ago, and I've always been a lover of jazz music, and I've always, really because of my background, you know, to somehow bring together the racial inequalities of this country has been very important to me. Way back in college, I went to historically black universities, so I read all the black authors. I was educated by some of the best black professors. At that time, I thought I was being persecuted. Now I look back and think, thank the Lord.
Yeah.
Okay, but what I want to say, when I came out here, I got affiliated through a church venue with Together Colorado. And this gentleman's question is, where can we take this? This initiative, and I'd be glad after this to play you a little bit of video of our leader here, but they are pushing social justice issues. They are pushing issues of incorrect police practices, show-ups, drive-by, you know, legislation that can occur. But to answer this question is that, you know, I come here today, and yesterday was my birthday, and best friend said, what do you want to do? And I was listening to 89.3. I said, I want to come to this venue. I think that you have an extraordinary opportunity to bring together the issues that need to be pushed for. They need to travel for. When I was first involved with Together Colorado, I went to the AME church over here for which the meeting was today. I was so impressed because we had a diverse crowd. I told my friend that was with me, I said, I can't believe for the first time in my life, you know, 55% of the people were white. And I said, there's something about Denver that's different. I maintain that
Thank you. I appreciate that. I was talking with one of my good friends, one of our good friends, Such, last night, and yeah, an amazing artist, and we were just discussing, what can be, what we hope will happen. I've always dreamed of having my own venue, and my own live music venue, and I'm always taking pieces from wherever I go, but not just to be in competition with the city, with other venues, but to be a part of, hopefully be a part of a network that is stirring up our local artists. Community is something big to me. I grew up taking dance and performing and what have you in 5 Points, in the original 5 Points, when Ulippians Cultural Center was down there, when my church was in walking distance, and so after dance at 9, I had children's choir rehearsal up the street at New Hope, and then after that, walking down the street to what is now Church in the City for Jazzercise. Like it was community. It was really, really community, and there was music in the schools then. That's another thing that has really crippled the Black musicians. It has sort of turned. I'm shifting the conversation now because we've talked about venues for a long time, and there's still so much that we can tackle. There are still there are disparities, when it comes to Black children having access to instruments. And I don't know about you all, but a lot of my early lessons did happen in school. I had music at Stedman Elementary. I had the late Sheila Traylor, who is so dear to me, as my music teacher. And she made everyone feel like they were her private student. She was that effective. And everybody who came through Stedman, anybody back then, or from back then, right now can at least say, oh, 4/4? Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, whether they had music elsewhere or not. They have some kind of understanding of a time signature or even pitch. I have elementary school friends who will reach out and say, was that lady under? Was that lady under? Because just those early lessons in knowing that little bit of music theory. Ron, I want to start with you because I feel like we haven't had a whole lot, heard a whole lot from you. But would you share? I think we need to be extremely real and pull no punches. Share any kind of situation that you've experienced professionally that was different or would have played out differently had you been a white man.
Well, boy.
Did I put you on?
share. No, that's good. Let's see. I'll share a couple of issues. Okay. One, because is Gisbert still here? Did he split? All right. Well, one of these involves Greg, and so who's if you don't know Greg Gisbert, trumpet player, he's one of the greatest trumpet players on the planet.
Real talk.
I took a lesson from a great trumpet teacher, Lori Frank, who's taught so many musicians, and she said, honestly, at that time, she thought Greg Gisbert was the best all-around trumpet player on the planet. They're like, you could put any piece of music in front of that brother, and he could play you anything. So when I met Greg, we both went to the Clark Terry Jazz Camp.
Yes.
I was, I think I must have been 18 maybe, so Greg was maybe 16. And so this is going to be a couple things, because I think our race relations can be nuanced. We can have a nuanced conversation if we want to. And so the only way I could get to the camp, well, I had to ride the bus, like the Trailways bus. But Greg's dad drove me and Greg to this camp. Like, he came by my parents' crib, picked me up. We rode out to Emporia, Kansas, did this camp. Greg had a broken right hand, I think, so he had to play left-handed all camp and still play better than everybody. But that's a whole other thing. So it's like, I was like, man, this kid, man, it's like ridiculous. So I this was really a loving gesture. Like, they didn't really know me. Like, drive me out there all that way. So there's that side of it, which is really beautiful. So on the way home, I have to ride the Trailways bus back. So like I said, I'm 17, 18, go to this restaurant where the Trailways bus comes. I've never been called nigger so much in my life.
Oh, wow.
I was there for maybe an hour. I heard nigger so much. I just sat there, this kid. So the Trailways bus driver shows up, and I'm like, oh my God. Finally, get my stuff. He's like, are we here for you, nigga? I said, get on this bus. I said, oh shit. So I was like, sorry, no curse. So I just go sit in the back of the bus, ride all the way home. So you get to see like a couple of sides of this, like this dynamic, like right away, And so much of it is like that, And so I can't really, there's always going to be these things that show up, and we have to confront them, and we have to deal with them realistically and honestly, and just present them as they are. And then we also have examples of humanity that transcends that we find every day too. And so I'm a big fan of diversity, and Jocelyn knows that a bit, and that I believe it wholeheartedly. And I believe that as elders, we are supposed to be looking out for you, people coming up. We're supposed to be aware of you. I'm always calling, like my friends at other schools, other like venues, like who's out there playing? It could be Shane. It could be Jocelyn, it could be Kim, it could be Raj. I've heard all of you. I've like gone to all your websites, listened to all your music, so that I know, like when somebody calls me, and they have a group of candidates maybe for something that is not diverse, and they say they can't find anybody. Well, I think you can find somebody. Right. And so that's also part of it, is just to be aware and to be honest with ourselves and ask if these questions that we're asking ourselves after Mr. Floyd's passing, his murder, not his passing, are the questions that we asked ourselves before his murder.
Right.
And we have to confront each day with the same diligence that we feel at this time when we've moved on to other things. Because part of this is the fact that we're all home right now. We see this every hour. There's going to be something reminding us of this. But soon we're going to be on with our days, and we're not going to be reminded of this every day or every week or every month. It's like, man, it's kind of like it's moved on. And so we just have to be on the case forever. And so that's all I want to say.
Yeah, good stuff. Thanks, Ron. I have another question. What is an ideal situation for you as an artist, and what do you want it to look like? I'm gonna let somebody else, because I have stories and anecdotes and what have you for days. But please, someone else answer that. I'm gonna come back to that, and that is a question from Anita.
It's interesting, right? Because what is ideal for an artist has changed. We don't know what our live venue situation is going to look like even now. We have some venues that are opening up, but we're not quite sure. We don't know what the state of the virus is going to be. We don't know what's going to happen. But I think I would love to see more community-style events. And I mean, before this happened, like, you know, my husband and I, we love having house concerts. You know, we'd have our friends come over and shed and do stuff, and sometimes we'd go live, and sometimes it would just be for us. But I think what's an ideal situation for me is that people have listened to and understand the music that I've already created, that there are platforms out there, that more platforms are created and exist to help support our independent artists to be seen and heard and known. I think that each community should actually help to fund its artists. You know, funding revenue is great. And I do think, you know, I would love to see more of our community at our shows. I think there's so many reasons for that, so that's why I didn't want to add that in as a component too when we were talking about the Baylor Project and stuff. Layers, right? But I think an ideal situation would be that in an American society that I could live and subsist off of my art. I wouldn't have to work in corporate America. I would be fully funded by my local community, by my venues, by the people whom I create for. So that is an ideal world for me, and that I would live in a world that sees me and my humanity as paramount, and that I am included in the conversation around humanity. I agree with you. I think we need diversity. I think we all have to live on this planet together. I don't think that there should be a black planet, a white planet, a blue planet. I think that we should all learn how to coexist together peacefully. And it's so beautiful and positive when we do it. Why wouldn't we want to be together? So that's ideal for me, is an ideal world, an ideal community, and then an ideal situation for me as a person and as an artist.
Good. Thanks, Raj. Ron or Kim, you have anything to? No pressure.
I mean, she kind of hit on all the big stuff. I mean, I for myself, I've definitely been very invested in trying to diversify my audience in general, and see more brown faces, black faces, all the other faces out there, and trying to do what I can to help integrate the music communities in Denver, just because it's necessary. It's been this way for too long, and I would like to see it change, and I would like to be a part of the change. But yeah, I think right now, any of us, what we would ideally want as artists is to be able to play again.
Yes.
And not coming to an internet near you.
Yeah, right.
No.
To be able to, I mean, it's
Not the living room concert.
Yeah, doing the virtual stuff is great to have that option. I do miss having people's energy in front of me and being able to create with that, because every audience is new, every audience is different. So
and not just the audience energy. Like, we've had to build videos with my band, and it's great. You know, we sound good together. We play like we know each other. However, it's not that energy. You know, there's a conversation going on in front of you. You know, and so that is definitely missing. I really miss that. I miss my people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
So, I'm not going to, yep, good job. Thanks, Raj, for checking that box for all of us. This is more of a, this is a rhetorical question, and he's really echoing what has been said. But this is from our love. This is from my baby cousin, one of my supporting vocalist and an artist in his own right, Dax Oliver. Yay! Mr. Dax Oliver.
Hey, Dax.
How can you gauge the effectiveness of your music if you can't perform live?
Exactly.
You know? How can you be successful without proving that ground? You know, like, it's infuriating. Those are his words. And I hear you. I hear you. When you don't get the chance to do your own music, to speak your own piece, to sing your heart song, it is beyond frustrating. That's what I don't think a lot of people get about creatives in general. But with musicians, this is how we breathe. This is our art is how we communicate. You know, there are often times when something horrible happens and I'll just go on and shut the door, lock myself in with a piano or just singing in a closet, because that is how we emote. When in the 90s there was a whole campaign, music is my anti-drug, right. Or whatever it was. You know, they were just trying to promote extracurricular activities. That seems to be gone, and those kinds of things are valuable. Words. And I don't want you to all to think that I'm rude looking at my phone while they were talking. I have a new trainer. I have to check in and drink water. It's what it's. I don't want to get in trouble. I'm going to wrap this up, but I'm going to share a situation that is, it actually breeds more questions. I don't know what to do with this, but I was on a wedding gig, one of the infamous wedding gigs, about 2 years ago, and it was in Aspen. And when we arrived, Brianne Anye, the lovely young lady I spoke about earlier, we rode together, and when we arrived, it was like, oh, hey, you must be here to work at the wedding. Sure. Hey, okay, great. And then there was the wedding ceremony. And Brianne went to sing at the wedding ceremony. The rest of us were participating at the reception. When she walked in, there was an usher passing out programs. And then when Brianne came to the front of the line, she did just like this.
Wow.
And then after they exchanged a long gaze, she says, can I help you? Yes, I'm here for the wedding. May I have a program? Oh, okay. And, you know, the lady hesitated to give her the program. She got the program, went on in. And then we performed. We were the only Black people at the wedding. That is pretty much how these weddings go in the mountains, not just Aspen, all these weddings. And this particular wedding, they had asked for a lot of like Black praise and worship music and Kirk Franklin and what have you. And so the leader of the band hired 9 Black people, and then he was also in the band. Yeah, that's a lot. We were asked to wear choir robes. Yeah, I got emotional because enough. We were asked to wear choir robes and process from the happy hour into the actual reception. And I shouldn't have said we were asked. We were told we were wearing robes. The decision had already been made for us. And then after we finished the gig, one of the sound techs misplaced a microphone. And instead of coming to ask, he came into the green room that we shared with all the ushers and what have you. It wasn't really a green room, just a room for stuff. Once he came in, he said, now who has microphone number, whatever it was? We left everything on stage, like you asked, the plan. We left our packs, we had in-ears, we left our in-ear monitor packs and microphones on stage. This man came back not once, not twice, 3 times, each time escalating. Okay, we're not gonna call the police or anything, just who has the microphone? Then the fourth time he came back, he said, "Oh, we found it," and just walked away. And as he was walking away, I said, "Oh, really?" Well, something along those lines. I don't know verbatim what I said. I said, "Really? Like, no apology or anything, huh?" Mm-hmm. Nothing. Like, you really just accused the only Black people of stealing a microphone? And he's obviously didn't hear me, but he kept it moving. But as I'm saying this, the band leader, the lone white person in the band, shushed me. He literally shushed. He said, "Jocelyn, shh, not now." Well, when? Mm-hmm. And why are you not my ally? Mm-hmm. Why can you not be my comrade and speak up? Because clearly he thinks that I'm just somebody who's going to show up to a gig and steal a microphone. Mm-hmm. And then after it being proven that he was wrong, he can't even apologize. Mm-hmm. And you shush me. Mm-hmm. And I was talking with one of my colleagues that was on that gig about it, and I said, this person has been silent on all social media, and several of my white friends and colleagues have reached out to say, "Hey, what can I do? How can I help? How do we jump in?" And I've been, as things come to me outside of rallies, I'm like, "Hey, I saw that you were going to donate money from your new single to Color of Change. How about become an angel investor for one of your counterparts that's having a hard time getting donors?" Right. Because that's a thing. Mm-hmm. That's also a thing. But this person has been completely silent. Other people who work in this band have spoken out. But their professional page and this person's personal page, radio silence. And when talking about this with one of my colleagues, he was like, "The thing is, even if we bring light to it, that's not gonna it's not gonna change anything, because that clientele, chances are they're gonna be like, oh, whatever." Mm-hmm. So I don't know even how to voice that or make that a question. Mm-hmm. But what do we do? I know, and Kim and I have had some situations in Vail that are similar, that just involved someone in the audience coming to tell us the right way to protest, or tell us that, just go along, follow Martin Luther King.
No, she said, "You should look to him as your leader."
Oh, God.
Right.
And after othering us the whole conversation and making us, you people, the whole time. And she did this, she thought, out of the goodness of her own heart, explaining that she hires Black people at her company. It was a whole,
and
it was
every
a mess.
time they die, my son goes to their funerals, and he just loves the music, so he wants a Black funeral.
And this was after us doing a gospel performance that morning. And so this goes back to what we were talking about before, what kind of artists, what kind of world we would like as artists. Two things for me: not to be a token, and also to not be dismissed. So, and then when you do support Black music or Black artists, like we were that morning, we were there to do a gospel, not brunch, but like a gospel thing.
A show.
And she was just so moved by it, but then felt the need to then tell us what we needed to do afterwards.
Felt the entitlement.
And, she invited herself to our table. We were like having lunch, hanging out, and she was just like, "Hey, I want to talk to you," and sit down. And was like, "Okay, cool. What?" And I know I had to this one was seething. There was smoke coming out of her ears, and I was like, "Cool, thanks, bye." I tried my hardest to just get this late, and she just was trying. And there was another gentleman with us who was white, who was considered just
The
shocked.
color of Raja's pants.
He was like, and she kept looking at him like, you know, right? You know, you're with me, right? And he was just like, do not bring me in your mess, to his credit. And it was interesting to talk to him about it afterwards, because he was like, does this happen to you guys? Because I think it was Dax was with us too.
Yeah.
So it was Dax, Jocelyn, and myself. And he's like, does this happen to you guys? And we were like, yeah.
All the time.
It does. And it is that dissonance of like, I'm going to sit here and pretend like I am supporting you and all the cool things you do with your music and how cool your music sounds and how it makes me feel, but I'm still going to separate myself from you and tell you from a place of authority what you should be doing with your life, how you should be doing it. And I think I guess that's the third thing. Don't be a token. I don't want to be a token. I don't want to be dismissive. I also don't want to be told how I can present myself as an artist.
Or
so
how to be the right kind of black.
Yeah, how to be the right kind of black.
This is how you are the presentable black.
Yeah.
Respectability politics.
Yeah, and we've all been there, you know.
Yeah.
I only stopped straightening my hair, less than 10 years ago, and I think I was afraid to before. And definitely thought about like what kind of work I would get, and I know that I wouldn't have gotten that kind of work at the time, and just because of my hair wasn't straight, you know, and that's something we need to reconcile ourselves with, as not we. Y'all need to reconcile yourself. Sorry. See, even that, I'm like putting myself in a position that I wasn't. You know, like,
But that's the thing.
But
we
like,
grew up here,
yeah.
and white supremacy isn't something that just dwells in white people.
Yeah.
You know, there is a lot of internalized white supremacy in black folks.
Right.
When I first locked my mother's hair, my mom has locks as well. My grandmother said, "Oh my goodness, that's going to be beautiful once you comb it out." She just, and then, you know, now the teenagers are wearing the lumpy afros. I love it. I love unorganized nap. That's everything to me. I love it because they're just being themselves. Well, my grandmother was like, "Oh, so that's what they're doing now. Everybody's out there with the hair lumpy." Oh, and she's like, was really concerned that my nephews weren't going to get jobs, or, you know, because of how their hair grows out of their head. It sounds ludicrous when you say it out loud. Sometimes if you just say these things out loud, just break them down.
But that's what I think is interesting about Denver, too, because we can give you these stories of our experiences in Aspen, and I can't tell you how many times I've shown up and had the same, either people wanting to explain to me how to be black, or people who, you know, I've even had people, you know, speak to my white musician friends about how amazing they are as musicians, but then we were in the same band, and it's like, you know, we get played to the left, or if we don't show up all at once, you don't know that we're all together. But the interesting thing I'll say about Denver is that there is a saying someone said on Instagram about white folks and gentrification, and it's like, you'll gentrify a neighborhood, then put a Black Lives Matter sign in the yard and say how open you are to diversity. And I think Denver especially likes to be known as a progressive city, likes to be known as a progressive county, maybe. I'm not going to say the state of Colorado as a whole. But there are still so many disparities, and there are still so many segregated moments that happen for people of color here. And to your point, sir, about how there needs to be some sort of events that are around social justice and things like that, I think the sentiment is good, but I think you need the venues to buy in. It's not enough for us to say, these are our stories and this is what we experience. It's more that we're sharing this to you, for you guys to then be the change. Because I don't think we have been here. We've been black, right. You know. We've been artists. We've been making this music. We've also been critiquing our communities, and we've also been a sign of the times for a long time. Yeah. But the times and the community around us needs to change. Mm-hmm. So we can give you all the answers, and, you know, for someone to say, I'm a black woman and that's, you know, I disagree. You absolutely have every right to disagree, but I will be honest with you and say that this is my experience, and right. No one's taken that from me.
Right.
And my experience has has been that a lot of venues, especially in Denver, want cover bands. They don't want you to do, to do the things that bring you joy often. So,
Right.
or at least, in your original music. But yeah, I think Denver is such an interesting petri dish in that, because I feel like there's a lot of dope people who are moving here who have progressive mindsets. But if the institution as a whole, if Denver theaters don't hire more black actors, it's like Oklahoma, right? You cast Oklahoma. Did you cast anybody from Denver, or did you cast all of these people who are not from here?
Right.
So how are you contributing to the health of your community in general as a business? And if you want to be challenged as a business to grow, then show up and make the change. I don't need to do that. You need to do that.
Right. Those with the power.
Right.
Those with the decision-making authority.
Yeah.
There's only so much our talking can do. I see you, sir. I'm coming to you. There's only so much that we can do. Quick story. I mentioned that I am employed by MSU Denver. Shout out to Ron Miles, my boss at MSU Denver. I had a situation in the department in which I work where when I started, the students were complaining that there was no diversity. All of the students. Actually, one young white girl stood up in an all-school or all-department meeting and said, "Can we please have more than white men come to our master classes?" And so I jumped into action. I reached out to friends who would be willing to come for master class the following semester and gave it to the decision maker. Let them know I've primed all these candidates. They're willing to come on in. They'd love to do it. They want to inspire young minds. And when the new list was published for the following semester, guess who was on there? All white men. There were two exceptions. One white lady and Don Chicharron. That was it. And then the kids were like, well, Black History Month and Women's History Month. And so the staff jumped into action to try and make something happen and not make it an afterthought. When one of the staffers said to the decision maker, well, we don't want this to be pageantry or to look like an afterthought, because it is. We need these resources to make it look like something. She was right in what she said. I got an email. Well, this person is using this language about it, and I just want you to know I see you, I hear you, and I planned a Black History Month program when I was in college. I actually broke the color barrier of the BSA when I was in college. What does this have to do? Just admit that you were wrong. Just admit that this is something that needs to be rectified, but don't play the fake ally thing. And then even after that email that I didn't respond to, that person's boss responded and replied to me, telling me to be nice. I have said nothing in this exchange. Yeah. So
yeah, but also bump being nice. It's like we've been nice,
right? Exactly.
This is not speaking of, like, we need to have more social events, social justice events. These things have been happening. People have been doing this for years.
Absolutely.
4 years. People are paying attention now because they have to, because they have nothing else to do. But it's going to take a lot more work, because there's been decades, there's been centuries of this stuff going on and people fighting against it. And so when the people that are listening now, thank you.
Right.
Continue to do so, long after it's a fad.
Right. After it's trendy.
And also keep listening, and listen. Don't tell somebody like, well, I did this. It ain't about you. It's never been about you.
Right.
It has been about your action, and been about making actual change. And that's the thing that needs to be happening. Because, like, I'm sorry, I'm just not in a be nice
No,
space.
never.
I'm not in a be nice space.
Never again.
Because it's been too long. And if you're just getting educated, congratulations. Those of us that have been trying to educate you for a long time are exhausted. And so I don't really have the capacity to be your friend right now about it and like coddle you. Don't ask me anymore how you can help. The resources are out there. They've been out there. Use them.
And
take up some of the mantle. We're tired.
As Kev on stage would say, get on Al Gore's internet and figure it out. We're in the information age.
Yeah.
Real talk. And there's just so much out there. There are things even by people we consider, or that a lot of us consider white comrades. Robin DiAngelo has been out here doing the work. She's the one who coined the phrase white fragility. She has books. There's stuff out there. I'm not gonna list
Jane
authors.
Elliott's been doing workshops
Jane
forever.
Elliott for 50 some odd years has been in these streets.
Yeah, so educate yourself and take up the mantle, because there are people that have been doing the work and people that have been frustrated because we can't express certain things, or for fear of losing jobs, losing fans, losing whatever, losing family members, and it's losing friends, and it's past time. Countries around the world, those of us that have traveled internationally know what people think about Americans, and I've not gone any place that somebody hasn't been like, wow, yeah, you're American, your country treats you terribly.
Right.
And it's like there's not a single place that I've been that hasn't said that. And I'm like, oh, great, can you tell the rest of the people that and it doesn't mean that I live in a terrible country. It just means we have actively tried to ignore an issue that is underlying everything about the structure of this country.
Right.
And again, everybody else has noticed this.
Right.
It's time for the rest of us to not only wake up, yes, wake up, address the issue. It's like the 12 steps. First thing, address the problem. But secondly, do something about it. Because it doesn't matter if you can just say, well, I read that book. Congratulations. What are you doing to change your community? Are you having those conversations at your dinner table? Are you having those conversations with your school board when you need to change, have more black educators, when you need more help for the black students that are in your, or Asian or whatever it is? Because I will say that there's that. They're listening to you, But yeah, it's past time for everybody to just be educated. It's time for action. It's past time for action. So, sorry, I'm off.
No, don't be sorry. No need to be sorry.
Okay, I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry.
When I reached out to them, I said, pull no punches. Say what you have to say. And with that, don't be like that colleague. Don't be that person. If you've been called out on something, we make mistakes. But when you've been called out on it, just own up to it and do better.
Yeah.
Don't try to prove to me how down for the cause you are and that you see me and so on and so forth. That's another instance of white supremacy. Our existence, our standards go beyond the white gaze. That's not, it's not how we look to white people that is the important thing. That's, we just want to live and exist and thrive as we are. We just want that opportunity. We just want equity. Sir, you've been very patient back there in the peach shirt.
Could you repeat that just one more time, what you just said, though?
No.
Do you remember
That's
what
only
you said?
right, exactly. See, that's my real friend. She knows.
She don't remember.
What I said was, our standards and our existence are not dependent on the white gaze or something along those lines. I really, my memory is really that bad. I can tell you something about 20 years ago, but it was something along those lines. That is, and again, that is a piece of white supremacy that all of us have often internalized. It has been indoctrinated, and what we're taught from kindergarten on through K-12. I'm grateful for one Tamara Roan, who is a brilliant teacher, and she fought for Black history to be at East High School. And then I'm grateful for my education at Fisk University, one of the greatest HBCUs this side of heaven. Yeah, clearly that's my thing, this side of heaven. But real talk, you know, where I got a chance to see how diverse Black people are. You know, we are not a monolith. We don't need just one representative.
Right.
I'm looking at you, everybody who has one representative. And we, just like that Black lady said, she's a Black woman in Denver, and her opinion is different.
Right.
Yeah, that's case in point.
Right.
Case in point. I do want to get this gentleman before we wrap up. Ooh, because we're over. Sorry.
We're never over.
The owner says we're never over.
Well, that's a good question. Well, actually, two comments. One, as a person born in the 60s with an afro, that afro's got to be around.
Oh.
He said the afro's
So you're not
gotta
with
be
the-
round.
You're not with Generation Z and I comb it once a year, but I wash it every day. I know. I hear you.
It's how it grows, man. It's how it grows.
But being a pretty musician to the Denver scene here, coming from a pretty diverse place in New York, I'm just curious, I'm just graduated from folks, I've heard a bunch of folks, but I just want you guys to comment, each of you, just a little piece before we get out of here, about your experience as far as being in a place that's not very, I find it to not be very diverse, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
But as far as like your band and you dealing with other bands and so on and so, like the diversity that you find within the music scene as a musician, dealing with other musicians and whatnot.
Okay.
Do you want to repeat his question real quick for him?
Well, unless you want to do it. Okay. Because your memory is always better. You know this. The question is, how do we conduct ourselves as musicians on this scene that is not very diverse? And we have to say it. I know a lot of my non-Black colleagues will say, well, we are diverse.
No.
Not, how does Graylin put it, Callie? Not visibly diverse. Right.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's woo, a whole other thing. But how do we conduct ourselves, and how do we find ourselves relating in that vein? Is that within the music scene? With other musicians, how do we, those who are not of color or Black? Ron, would you start us?
Yeah.
Well, I think that you just have to make sure and first off, just have your antenna out. And you have to make an extra effort to know who's out there on the scene, because if you just ask one person or two people, you might just get a couple of answers. Mm-hmm. You've got to ask a lot of people. You've got to do a lot of searching. You've got to know. And you still might have an instance where there's maybe a Black leader with an all-white ensemble, but that's the best ensemble that you can put together from a point of knowledge, not from a point of ignorance. You can't just show up to a place and not have representation of the culture just because you didn't do your homework.
Yeah.
That's inexcusable. But if you have a band that is all white dudes and they play their tails, I was like, well, all right, that's what we got tonight. Enjoy that. But you also, if there are women or people of color that are not being represented that you don't know about, then that's on you. You have to take some personal responsibility to yourself and your community to always be diligent. And that's what we've gotten back to this. It comes back to this over and over again, that it's a continued fight. It's a continued effort. It's not just a one-time thing. It's every day getting up and asking yourself and looking in the mirror and saying, did I do what I could do today? And if you can say that, then you can put your head on that pillow and then live to fight another day, hopefully. But if you didn't, then you're going to have an uneasy night. And you should have an uneasy night. So that's my response to that.
That's good.
I think, I always think it's interesting, and this is not to you, sir, but I always think it's interesting that people of color are asked to speak to the lack of diversity in spaces, because I think that each of us as individual band leaders and members have done a lot that we can do even to have our music be diverse. Like, my band is diverse. I don't have all black folks in my band. I have beautiful, amazing musicians in my band, and that's what's most important to me. But in terms of the issues with diversity in Denver and how to deal with it, I think, yes, you can challenge the venues, like I said before, but I think we also need to create the diverse spaces for what we want. I know that, for instance, Such has created the Artists of Color, the Denver Artists of Color Network, and there's a lot of ways, and I'm grateful to you, JoFoKe, and I'm grateful to Such, and I'm grateful to Mary Louise Lee, and other musicians that I've met in Denver who not only supported me as a fellow vocalist, but did say, come on my stage, come sing a song with me, come spend some time. I think the challenge for new musicians of color who are moving to Denver is, yes, go to those national spaces, go to those venues and try to get booked, but also look at your local musicians and connect and make your own networks, make your own venues. I've always had challenges as an original musician where I'll go to a venue and say, give me a night, give me something. I won't get a date, I may not get booked, but if I book it myself and I create my own event, it's always awesome. I always have a good time. I think it's awesome for venues to provide spaces for us to do alternative stuff. But I think we have to create the diversity that we want to see as well. Like, if you're not seeing it in your local 20, or so jazz and soul venues, then we need to make a venue and we need to figure it out and do it ourselves.
If anybody wants to donate toward me getting my own venue,
I got you,
that's
sis.
what Such
I got
said.
about $5,
She said,
but you can have it.
We need that venue now.
Let's do it.
I know 3 for sale. Unfortunately.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
let's get it going.
Yeah.
Well,
Right,
hey,
right.
well, there's space for you.
Exactly.
Okay, now we got to find that money.
Right.
Okay.
So y'all heard it? JoFoKe is opening a venue? Yay!
Wow.
Yeah, I haven't put together a band in a long time, but I do happen to often be either the only woman on stage or the only person of color on stage, or often both. And I will say that I do think that people do need to make a conscious effort. I kind of been harping on people this last year about hiring more female musicians, because that is definitely something that gets overlooked. And it's like, they should come to your mind as readily as any of your male colleagues do. And, I can extend that and but can do more to extend that to people of color, to black people. Like, okay, you all know, if you're a musician that doesn't know black musicians, I kind of don't know how you're existing in the world of music. I don't really know how that happens, but if that happens, get some black friends, get some black music friends, and you just widen your perspective. I think it's so important to have those voices. My dream band is super diverse as well. And if, like to Ron's point, you need to, it shouldn't be that you didn't reach out to those people that you don't have them on that. I mean, and it does happen sometimes, like, you reach out to those people and they're busy. Yay, we're busy, woohoo. Right. But it shouldn't be because, like, well, I don't know any, because that is a fault on your own. So I think immersing yourself more into the whatever music community you're in, and like we were talking about, the music community here is pretty segregated, but I have seen change
Yeah.
a little bit in my years of working out here. So there's little hope, but there are those of us that are going to keep pushing more for it. So people like you don't have to come up here and be, move from New York and be like, okay,
Right.
what's up with this scene? Why does it look like this? We'd rather have it be, man, yeah, there's some bad cats in Denver, for all around, and also so that, yeah, I don't have to be the only, I don't have to be the only in any situation. Yeah, because there's so much of us being Black people in general, but also Black musicians. You end up being representative of your entire community.
Right.
So I walk out of my house and I am representing Black women and Black female musicians everywhere. And it gets heavy, you know, because sometimes you just want to be not sometimes, we want to be able to just live our lives as anybody else does, as you said. So, yeah, I don't know what my point was, but.
No, it's good. And like Kim said, like, get yourself some Black friends and like really be a friend.
Yeah.
Don't let it be
Yeah.
that token friend that one of my good friends I haven't talked to in about 5 years, but they actually used to be my grandmother's CNA. Don't, really show yourself friendly, be a friend, and really establish a relationship that is worthy of you calling them friend. And then another thing I think that might aid in this is music education. I know I keep going back there, but a lot of people know who I am and who Solomon is and who Kim is and who Ron is because we're a part of academia. Yeah, and then we've made different connections and what have you. But like there's that sword cuts both ways. You look outside of the scholastic community, look outside of schools or people who have gone to school. Because there are musicians who sing and play circles and squares around me who haven't had traditional music education, but are over here killing it. And it sucks that they're gone now, but I used to always send people to Jack's. Because at Jack's, you're gonna find any and everybody, be it a jam night, be it, a funk night or a blues night, whatever. You're gonna find some incredible, slept on players, people who've been put on the back burner or whatever. You're gonna find some of the most talented people. And I am really, really, really super concerned now about how budding artists are going to grow and find their voice, because that stage has been that for so many of my Black comrades, really. 27 years. Even I don't think that the law can come and get me now, but when I was not legal the first time I took the stage at Jack's. I performed with my uncle, my late uncle, Winston Ford, down there, and that's old Jakarta. It was like, I think they had a longer name, like Jakarta Funk Attack or something like that. And I was 16 or so, or something like that, and performed down at Jack's. And she kept that culture going, for nearly 30 years. And I don't know any other venue in Denver that is doing that. So hopefully, after this pandemic and after we there's a collective head scratching and actual work put in, because just talking about it, or what the Bible says, faith without works is dead. If we don't put in the work to make these things happen,
Then what?
yeah. You there, sir, that I have not known since I was 6 years old.
I just wanted to say, well,
change.
And my family pledged to be the community we can to make things better. People be calling us and threats whenever needed. And I'm interested in doing work on it towards like police reform. It seems like something that can make just improve safety
Yeah.
quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So if anyone here is interested in working with me, I'm just trying to figure out how to raise a broader chorus of voices to make a new police department, like start over.
Mm-hmm.
Protocol.
Absolutely.
So if while we're here together, like I'm someone who's trying to figure out how to do that, and the more the merrier, and strength in numbers. So we can talk after the
All right.
Shane.
Appreciate
Sure,
that,
Shane.
Shane. And definitely, we at the top of this, I shared that there's so much that we can share just as Black people. You know, our different experiences, just being Black. Period. Our mothers knew that we were going to be Black before any kind of gender reveal or any of that. You know, we knew that was going to be first. And so we could share several examples and experiences that we have, but we wanted to narrow it down to our industry to try and change what we can in our industry. And a lot of these things, all of these things, I don't think are common knowledge or were common knowledge. And hopefully this is enlightening, and the decision makers can start making different decisions, better decisions, including people not just in their wait staff or as bartenders, but in these decision-making roles, people that don't look like them, that can help advise them, and we can start to shift and have a better support for our community, our Colorado or Denver community, music community. But yes, we are definitely all about the police reform, because some things have got to change. All things have got to change. I don't want to get into that because I will keep going. I am on my best behavior. I'm very tame today, but fight the power.
And shout out to folks in the community who are working on police reform and who are working on legislation. I mean, Candy Sedabaka, as you know, is the city councilwoman for District 9.
Yes,
much respect for her, for the work that she and Lisa Calderon are doing. Much respect to Candace Bailey, the folks who work with Lighthouse Consultants, and the work that they're doing around passing the law that just, SR 217, I think it is?
Yes.
I don't want to say it incorrectly. Please tell me correct.
Lindsay Harrod?
Yes.
Or Leslie Harrod.
Yes.
I was thinking Lindsay Mentor, who is another activist out there just really, really, really working on our behalf. And she was one of the people to spearhead the reopening, or is spearheading the push to reopen the case of Elijah McClain. And that's necessary. For those who don't know, Elijah McClain was a 23-year-old Black man, unarmed, whose last words, sadly, were also, "I can't breathe." He asked the officers not to touch him. He said, "I'm an introvert, please step back," and ultimately died. And this happened back in August. But we weren't in the pandemic, and all eyes weren't unbusy with work. All eyes weren't able to focus on that. And so we are in that fight right now, trying to get his case, his justified homicide case, reopened, because it wasn't justified. It wasn't.
If we're gonna consider the fact that, yes, our discussion right now might be around, the national discussion might be around police brutality and the condition of Black folks, and how they are oppressed within our governmental system in general. I'm glad that you had this discussion around music, because the reality is, being Black in America, you do suffer so many different ills on so many different levels. And it's not just the brutality or the harassment that you suffer from the police, but it's all the microaggressions, and it's all the many ways that you don't feel human in your own country, in your own city, in your own neighborhood. All of that is important, and if each of us can consider how we can heal as an individual, it's not about, me and my sister friends talk about this a lot, and I'll bring it around. Me and my sister friends talk about this a lot, about what kind of woman do you want to be? What kind of health do you want to have? What kind of friend, how authentic do you want to be? If you're going to have those questions with your sister friends, you also want to have those questions with your community and with the people who are around you. And I think America's biggest issue is that we didn't want to admit that we were sick in the first place.
Right.
So now we're in this situation where things have blown over. Now, not only are we sick, we have a disease. And it's, oh my God, some people didn't even know we were sick. Some people were damn near on death's door from the way that this country has treated us. So there's so much of that. But I think the biggest responsibility is the individual responsibility. Who will you be? What kind of person will you be when this pandemic is over? What kind of person will you be when the gaze does turn away from, whatever you see on the news? How do you speak to the neighbor that lives next to you? How do you treat the family that lives across the street from you? How do you treat the people who service you, who service your cars, who cut your hair, who cut your grass? It's so much bigger than that. And we all, as musicians and artists, we walk with our musician stuff, but that in addition. And I want us to be a better people, period.
All right, girl.
Well, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. No. No, I do want to say thank you to Ron Miles, Rajdulari, Kim Dawson. Thank you to you all who've come out. Big thanks to Don and Matt and the Dazzle family. They're in here.
Guys. We love you guys.
And
thank you to JoFoKe.
Yes, thank you, Jerry. Thank you, sis.
I'm
putting this thing together.
Like I said, I didn't want to be here.
Right.
I really didn't. But I'm glad that we did have this discussion. I don't think that this is. I think this is the tip of the iceberg. Mm-hmm. I know it is the tip of the iceberg, but I hope that this inspires conversations in your personal groups, in your personal networks. I failed to mention, and it is important, someone asked about the projects we're working on. There's a project that is dear to me. It is a very personal project. Some years ago, I started sharing from the stage that I battle mental illness. And as a result, people would come up, and they still do come up after to talk to me to say, thank you, or that was so brave, or my cousin, or my such and such, and do you know anybody that I can connect them with? And then as time went on, I started getting more requests via email, and then some in person, but it became a huge thing, where it was Black people saying, I have a therapist, but he doesn't believe me, or she doesn't believe me. Do you know anyone? And so it just started kind of as a grassroots type of thing. My sister and I texting and, using our own personal connections to refer people to therapists of color. And one of those directories that we readily promote is therapyforblackgirls.com. It's very, very important. Our mental health is important, and that is something in the Black community that we do not often speak on. There's a need, and in our community, oftentimes we say, that's a white thing. We don't do that. And I think it is partially as a result of what has been represented on TV. White people have the luxury of having dimensions of characters, multi-dimensional characters. So we just get to be the maid or get to be the sassy girl, but there's no real character in there. There's no real actual life. And so sometimes when you don't see yourself, you're not seeing the possibilities. And yes, mental illness is something that is quite prevalent in our community as well. And so it's okay to not be okay. If you need help, by all means, you can reach out at my website, JoFoKe.com. The Count Joy Network is the tab that you'll click on, or just go straight to Therapy for Black Girls. And they don't just help you Black girls, they help everybody. But that is our primary goal, to reach out and say, it's okay to be not okay, sis.
Yep.
Or what's the hashtag, you okay, sis?
Right.
And if you say no, we've got you. So with that, I think we're gonna close. Thank you again so much for joining us today. I'm glad that we did this. Thank you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.